Yo, what up, Street Talks? There, Kim. Alright, so I'm gonna do a quick video on some random thoughts about good fat, bad fat. So it's a riff off of Gary Taubes' book, Good Calories, Bad Calories. I highly recommend the read. And this is important because sugar is the enemy, Coca-Cola is probably evil, and diabetes is fucking hijacking America. And probably the world. And so sugar's been so normalized in our diet, but I actually think probably more people probably die from sugar than even like heroin overdoses in America, because, you know, insofar much as I understand it, sugar it actually might directly cause type 2, actually no, let me be more bold. Sugar causes type 2 diabetes, which is, you know, not a genetic thing. Only type 1 diabetes is genetic, and actually causes metabolic disease. And now they're even trying to call Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes. And why is diabetes a big problem? So diabetes is a huge problem because, I don't know, it's just like people die from it, and it kind of gets me kind of riled up because I feel that, you know, Coca-Cola, all these corporations, these are just like a bunch of sneaky bastards. I mean, like, if you want to eat sugar or Coca-Cola at the end of the day, that's fine. But there's some sort of notions which I find very pernicious and dangerous. The notion that like, oh, everything in moderation is okay. I'm like, yo, you wouldn't give a kid fentanyl in moderation. And that's why notions of everything in moderation tend to be a bad idea. How's it doing, TJ? What you doing?
Going crazy.
Going crazy?
Yeah.
Just drink more Red Bull. You'll be all right.
We have, at the end of this week, some people are starting to move in, but I think we have at least a leeway of another week or two.
Okay, so you have a little more time to.
I think so, yeah. We're not concentrating in this building. Hey.
Hey, if you find more Korean food, let me know.
I will do that.
Thank you. What up, Kyle? So yeah, so I think it's really important for us to understand that, you know, at the end of the day, I don't want the government or anybody to prevent me from, you know, eating what I want to eat, drinking what I want to drink, not drinking what I want to eat, not eating what I want to eat. So like my nightmare scenario is, let's say there's like, oh, eating meat is bad for you and therefore we prohibit you from eating meat. I'm like, yo, that's not nice, right? And so certainly, like, if people want to have their ice cream sundae sandwiches, people want to have their croissants, whatever, sugar, that's totally fine. But the big issue is, I think there's just kind of a lot of, and this is where I'm starting to realize that big pharma, big sugar, maybe these guys are more the bad guys. And, you know, and once again, there's no like evil hegemon who's, you know, has their dirty fingers just kind of all over it. It's just more of like, I mean, it's just kind of the result of capitalism, consumerism, stuff like that. Sugar is insanely profitable. So if you just follow the money, it's pretty obvious why society is engineered this way. And also thinking to yourself, like, the issues about language. So for example, in this is where it's useful to know other languages. So in Korean, sal, S-A-L, or shiat a-ril, means like to be, you know, body, fat, flesh, and it essentially means like extra flesh. And in Vietnamese, they use the word thịt. It's hilarious because it's the same word for like you know, carne, meat, as well as human flesh. And in English, and then also in Korean, then we have another word that's more specific. It's called jibang. Jibang, and it comes from Chinese, and essentially means like kind of the oil secreted from an animal, which means that in a lot of Asian languages, the difference between like human fat flesh and the difference between like dietary fat, it's different. So like even in Spanish, right? To be gordo, like to be big, grand, like fat, is just to have a big size, whereas meat is like carne, and I'm actually not sure how to say fat in Spanish now that I think about it. But anyways, so the big problem is in English, the words fat, it describes both the dietary fat, like saturated fat and stuff like that, and also like human flesh fat, which is like adipose tissue. You know, having any sort of extra thing lying around is adipose tissue, right? And as a consequence, we Americans, we two things, we get confused, right? Like when we're talking about fat, we think that if you eat food that have high saturated fats, you will become fat, which is not true. If you just ate nothing but T-bone steak for a month, I could guarantee you, and you didn't drink any sugar or eat any carbs or rice or whatever, I could guarantee you your body fat percentage would drop precipitously. And also Americans are kind of weird too, because I mean, certainly at the end of the day, no one wants to be over fat, right? It's not a weight issue, because you know, you could be, you know, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, 260 pounds, so it's technically overweight, right? But let's say he's at like, you know, 10% body fat, high muscle mass, he's technically overweight, but he's not over fat. But then once again, the problem is that we don't like to use the F word in America. Like, to call somebody fat is actually worse than to say the other F word, which is fuck, right? And then the weird thing is that, like in America, certainly body shaming is real and fat shaming is real and stuff like that. But then the media glorifies also, like, you know, all these babes who have, like, you know, it's kind of the Sports Illustrated look, and also the dudes who are all like jacked on steroids and stuff like that. So this is a big problem, because so much of our culture is image dependent, and I mean it's just human history too, right? Like if you wanted arete, A-R-E-T-E, which means like human excellence, virtue in a man, he needed to be highly muscular, low body fat. Just look at the old statues of some of the Greek Olympians, you could just kind of see that. And similarly, like, it's a big health concern, because if you're over fat, so typically the ideal is for a man is around 10%, women's around 20%. Anything more than that is not really necessary. And you know, I think men and women in the 30, 40, obviously 50% body fat percentage range, that's just like legit bad for you. Like, you're gonna feel more depressed, you know, more lethargic, you know, higher morbidity rates. And also, like, I think this is like a big thing too, is just, you just wanna look great naked in front of the mirror before you take a shower, because your body is your ultimate bank account, and I think the body is the ultimate wealth. So certainly health is something that's much more than having a quadrillion dollar. Like, if I could be a quadrillionaire but be 400 pounds of 50% adipose tissue fat, or I could be super poor but look like a Greek god, I would choose to be poor and look like a Greek god. And I don't know, like, but at the same time, the weird thing in America is that vanity is seen as bad, and also the Christian morality says the body is evil and cannot be trusted. Therefore, as a consequence, we Americans have a very strange relationship with our body. And you know, we still watch these superhero movies and we glorify the body, but at the same time, we feel shameful about the body.